I know with money being tight right now, it's a temptation to want to buy a bunch of aftermarket parts to fix your power equipment. So I did want to touch a little bit on this today. I want to show you some stuff that is fine to do aftermarket on and other stuff that I would not recommend. Air filters is something that I commonly use aftermarket on. If you look at these, for example, these are off a FS91 trimmer. Everything's pretty much the same on there. The only difference is one says steel and one doesn't. So these are good to use for aftermarket, save you some money along the way. Fuel lines and impulse lines are one thing that I personally would stay away from unless you cannot find an OEM one or it's really cost prohibitive. The biggest problem I see with these is how they seal around the tank. A lot of times these are not molded properly and they're too loose and you will have leakage around the tank. So if you do get these, make sure that you're checking them for leaks before you just assume everything's working fine on your piece of equipment. The next thing is ignition coils. I would highly recommend staying away from aftermarkets on these 100% of the time. The only exception would be is if you can't find an OEM one because it's a discontinued item. This particular ignition coil costs about 15 bucks aftermarket. The steel OEM one's about $140. So on a project saw that I was working on, the customer wanted me to try one of these first. I did, the saw would not start, so I got the steel OEM one and everything worked fine. So just be aware, most of the time these Chinese aftermarket knockoffs are just complete garbage. The next thing is carburetors. I would only do OEM carburetors. I have had so many problems with these. Customers will buy something off eBay or Amazon aftermarket, put it in their piece of equipment, bring it into my shop because it's not working right, and come to find out they switched out the carburetor with a piece of Chinese crap. I take the carburetor out, switch it out with a new OEM one, even if it's Chinese as Zama or Walbro or something like that, and it works perfectly fine. So I would definitely stay away from these. Now, if you're rebuilding the carburetor, you can get aftermarket diaphragms and gaskets. Most of the time, those will be sufficient and fine to work in the carburetors. Most aftermarket fuel filters will work just fine, so don't be afraid to use these in your power equipment. As far as spark plugs go, I would only go with NGK or Bosch in your small engine power equipment. If you do some of these off-brand ones, they will have intermittent running issues, they will not be gapped correctly, or they will have removable tops on them, and you'll end up having running problems with these as well. And the last thing I want to hit on is plastic components, like your shrouds, your recoils, stuff like that. Aftermarket stuff will work fine most of the time, it fits correctly, but I would keep in mind the plastic is usually more brittle than the OEM stuff. So if you're going to be replacing pawls and rope rotors and stuff like that, I would definitely highly recommend going with OEM. The aftermarket stuff just does not hold up. Shrouds and stuff like that, you're probably fine, but just use your judgment on that stuff. Sometimes the cost is cost prohibitive to go with OEM, so I understand getting aftermarket. I hope this video will help you guys make informed decisions about what to put in your equipment as far as aftermarket versus OEM.